1 Million Cups happens every Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and it happens in about 72 cities across the United States. The format's the same in every city. We have startups that pitch. They have 6 minutes to tell us about their venture and their company and what they're up to, and then the real magic happens in the next 20 minutes. We as a community that's challenging and friendly get 20 minutes to ask them questions and give them feedback and make a real difference in their lives and the lives of their company. Today, Luke is going to start, and then I am pitching the James J. Hill Center right after that. So with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Luke. Go. Awesome. Thanks, Luke.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. As he mentioned earlier, this is actually my second time here. I loved it so much, I came back for even more of a beating. So I'm back for round 2, and I really appreciate all the feedback I got the first time. So I'm really looking forward to that 20-minute part where I get to interact with you. So I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as I can. So as Lee said, my name is Luke. I'm the founder of Abamath. And as of 3 weeks ago, that stood for a better approach to math. But now we're just Abamath, and we have no slogan. What we do is we run coding and robotics camps in the same way we do coding and robotics. What Little League does for baseball, we do for coding and robotics. Sorry about that. So what Little League does for baseball, we do for coding and robotics. We make it fun, we make it exciting, we make it competitive, and we just get kids really excited for computer science. So before I get into what we do today, I want to give you a little bit of my background and the background of Abamath. So in 2013, I started a math tutoring company, and that was Abamath. And it was a better approach to math. And my biggest weakness, what I came here for last time, was sales and marketing help. And I spent $10,000 up front. I tried Google AdWords, I tried Facebook, I tried newspapers, magazines, everything I could think of, everything I could read online, every tactic I could find. And finally, in January of 2014, I said, okay, well, none of that worked for me. I got one customer out of $10,000 in marketing, and that's not going to fly. That's not going to give me any return on my investment because I'm not selling homes here. So what I did was I said, okay, well, what if I had a robotics event? And I had a robotics event at the Math Tutoring Center. And with that robotics event, I brought in a bunch of people, and I was like, this is great. So now you know about us, and now you're going to sign up for our math tutoring. And they're like, not really, but when's your next robotics event? And I said, well, we don't really do robotics. We're a math tutoring center. And they said, okay, but like, when's the next one? And I said, okay, like 2 weeks from now. And that kept growing and growing and growing to the point where it was about even the last time I came here. And the last time I came here, I was trying to explain my company as this math tutoring company that also did robotics and coding. And the message I got back was, Luke, your message is really unclear. We don't know what you're doing. Are you math tutoring or are you robotics and coding? And that was a lot to take in, but looking back at my old site, it was robotics and tutoring and a bunch of different things going on, and it was really confusing to figure out what we did. So one of the most bittersweet things I've ever done, and it just happened, so it's really fresh, is yesterday morning I turned in the keys to my math tutoring center. And we're no longer a math tutoring center because this summer we have 30 classes lined up for coding and robotics. So this summer alone we'll make more money than we made in the past 12 months of tutoring. We'll make more money doing coding and robotics. And so these are the numbers that matter to me. Today we have 3 coaches, and this summer we have 30. And because of the feedback I got last time when I was looking for sales and marketing help, I actually have no problem getting these sales now because I know exactly how I'm doing it. I have a process. I go to community education districts. I tell them exactly what we want to do, and they sign up. It's incredible, just because I listened to the feedback that I got here, and that's why I'm back. So now my biggest concern is growth, because that 300 number is us growing 10 times over the next year. And that's what I want to do. And the thing is, that's so realistic that I'm not concerned about selling 300 classes now. I'm that confident in my sales and marketing now because of what I got as feedback here that I'm not worried about selling 300 classes. What I'm worried about is doing it right. And so the feedback I'd really appreciate today is for those of you who have done this kind of growth where you've scaled that quickly, for those of you who have input, I would just love to know how you did it and what hurdles you think I'm going to run into. And with that, I'm just going to open it up for questions because this is really the more valuable part to me.
Why are you doing 300 classes? Why don't you do 30 monster classes?
That's a great question. So, and one, frankly, I don't have an excellent answer for it. And so the way I have classes set up now is I have 4 to 10 students in each class. But that's a great point. Some of the districts have been asking for larger classes. So why not grow within the current? That's fantastic.
50 kids sitting around and everybody doing robotics and picking up off each other's ideas, and once you get it and they hear about it, now next time it's 100 kids that are showing up, and you don't need to make 25 classes out of that, just have a robotics party.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you. I guess you have the microphone.
300, is that a number you just picked?
No, so it's based on the number of school districts that I'm targeting.
Okay.
So I'm targeting 50 school districts, and I want to do 6 classes in each.
Okay, so you do have a plan, but then now have you worked backwards on that plan to exactly what it's going to take financially to get all that done and
Yes.
team-wise?
Yeah, so financially as far as what the cost flow is, or, because what's nice right now is since I no longer have a space, the cash flow actually works pretty nicely because we have no fixed cost, essentially. So we can grow just based on variable cost. Was that your question? I want to make sure that.
The question more is just making sure that you got a plan. If you have to get a building, you may end up getting into a fixed cost situation, so you got that plan as well.
So we don't plan to get a building at any point. Our meetings are scheduled for Chipotle, and that may upgrade to Cocoa Uptown at some point, but not quite yet.
I offer more classes than I can teach, so I'm always looking for more people. So building good bench strength and having always a backup instructor or coach was really, really helpful to me. And then also finding the model so that the pay structure actually sustains them, even if it's a small class versus a larger class.
That's awesome. I'd love to talk to you about specifics afterwards.
How do you, so if you need 3 coaches today for 30 classes, is it a linear relationship?
Yes.
You don't need 30 coaches for 300?
That's correct.
How do you find 30 qualified people?
That's a great question. So right now it's a really small number, so it's nothing I've really had to worry about. But you're right, recruiting 30 is going to be a lot harder.
That's going to be a bigger issue than recruiting students.
Yeah.
That you're going to be recruiting coaches who can deliver your message and your product in a way that still resonates with students.
Absolutely. Is somebody taking notes? I should be taking notes.
It's getting recorded.
Perfect. Thank you. Now it's getting recorded. Yeah.
What are your biggest concerns with this growth? You obviously probably have some things on your mind with that.
Yeah. So my biggest concern is I've just never done it before. So my biggest concern is I almost don't know what to be concerned about. And that's almost more frightening just because I don't know. And I know that I can approach these people, and I know that I can run these classes, and we've done training with these 3 coaches, and that went really well. But I'm imagining training 30 coaches and how that's going to go. I guess my biggest concern is I don't know what to be most concerned about. Yeah.
So do you have, is it just you, or do you have a team or partners, or?
So it's just me. I'm leading it. Obviously, my fiance is the real boss, and she's done a lot to help me. She does training for Caterpillar Ziegler. She does management training, so she helped me, say, with training that. But I'm the founder, CEO, all of the above.
I would recommend some sort of advisory board, maybe, that has education experience and maybe a coaches, since you're comparing this to a Little League.
Right.
But some people that would be willing to meet with you once a month, once a quarter, and help you as you come across new challenges, because going from 3 to 10 might bring new challenges, 10 to 15, 30, it'll be different along the way, maybe.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? How would you recommend going about finding that advisory board? Okay.
Well, do you know people so far, teachers, people you've already been working with these schools? There may be supporters in there that really like what you're doing, really get it, that you really like. Maybe starting by asking some of them if they would be willing to, some of them may be willing to volunteer their time to help see this grow.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my question's about the scaling quality control, and then in terms of like how you're metricing that. Especially with educational type stuff like this, it's pretty easy to do on the small scale. You've got a bunch of really excited people to do it, but to hit 300 to train all of that, what's your plan for that, and how are you going to be sure that you've got success? What's the feedback mechanism for you?
Right. So one thing that kind of stinks for us is communication, or community ed doesn't have fantastic feedback. They don't necessarily give you feedback. They might get it, but they don't return it to vendors. So since a lot of our classes have an online component, on the last day of every single one of our classes, we do have a feedback form that the students are filling out. Now, I'm not sure that that's the best way for us to do it, but it's the best way I've thought of so far. But if you have additional suggestions, I'd love them.
So are you a member of EduCelery?
I am. I've only been able to go to 1 or 2 events because I've been math tutoring for 3 hours a night for the past 2 years.
Okay, but you could pull advisory members out of there.
That's a great point.
That place is loaded.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, I'm an intellectual property attorney, so I'm a little out of my element, but okay. I look at everything through that lens anyway. So I guess my question would be, what kind of infrastructure are you building so that you'll have some sort of proprietary control of this, and one of your 30 coaches someday doesn't come and take the materials and start something fresh and relabel and all the like? Are there agreements with people that you're contemplating?
There haven't been, no. And right now with such a small group, it hasn't been that critical, but I think, to your point, that's a good thing I should be looking at as I grow, is making sure that that can't just be duplicated. Thank you. Yeah.
Speaking to planning a little earlier, that's what I was getting at, and I think the advisory board is a great idea. But if you've got the target of 300, if you sit down and start working backwards, get your plan together, break it down by year, how many years out by year, by quarter, and start asking yourself a bunch of questions as you write these things down. Well, I need 30 teachers. Oh my gosh, and now I need this kind of money. All these things will come aboard, come out that may lessen your fear a little bit. Plans are built to change, but at least you'll have a working start.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about your process and how you first started pitching these to the schools, and then how, you're going from, so 30 classes means what, 6 school districts right now? 13 school districts
right now, but a lot of them are 1 or 2 classes because they want to kind of feel us out, because we are relatively new to this area in comparison to the other vendors who have been doing it for a decade or so. So they want to feel us out and make sure we do it right.
So how did you pitch it to these schools, and then how are you going to do that to all 50 districts? Is it going to be you driving around pitching these, or how do you do that?
Good question. So what I like about sales here versus sales in math tutoring is it has been a lot easier because community education directors have sort of a standard language. And what really helped was I had someone with Hopkins Community Ed who was phenomenal. And the first time I went to him, it was, hey, I'd like to run a computer science course. And then it was 40 or 50 emails back and forth for me to actually get him the information he needed. But now when I go and I approach a community ed district, it's not a drive out there. It's a phone call plus an email where I say, hey, I'd like to offer these courses. This is what we do. This is what we're about. This is our website. And then I send them a list of these are the exact courses, the exact dates, the exact number of students, so that all they have to do is say yes, because that makes it a lot easier for them. But it was definitely a learning curve where I made that mistake a lot of times. But no, I won't be driving all over.
Hey, Luke, first let me say thanks for coming back. It's great to see you. Great to see what you've done so far.
Well, thank you.
My question is, can you go into more detail about how these classes work? Is it an hour class? Is it a week-long course? How is it competitive?
Absolutely. So these are our summer camps specifically, and we have fall camps as well, but I'll tackle summer first. So summer is just because of the makeup of how community education works, is they're 3-hour classes for 4 days or 5 days, depending on the district. So it's 12 hours or 15 hours. And that can be a morning class from 9 to noon or an afternoon class from 1 to 4. And so those are the 2 types of classes. And then to go into what we do in the class, we have online actually coding, and then we take it's computer science unplugged. And that's where the kids learn computer science principles like encryption and things that are they seem really complicated, but when you break them down, encryption, error detection, a lot of things can be taught to students, and a lot of it is just using playing cards or stacking cups and understanding how computer science actually works behind the scenes. And so that's 3 hours a day. And then finally, so the second to last day, we introduce them to a game where essentially they can write code to play against another student. And so what it is you have your team, which might be Minnetonka or Hopkins or Osseo, and you can actually play your code against another team. And for a lot of these kids, that's something they've never done before. Typically, those rivalries don't start until middle school or high school. And for third graders to get to be a part of Minnetonka or get to be a part of St. Louis Park or whatever it might be, for them to be able to play head-to-head against these other teams virtually is really cool for them. Does that answer your question? Good question. So our primary focus right now is 3rd through 6th. We've had requests for older students, and we've been able to do those. We can make the classes more challenging. One thing I do want to grow in the future is our kindergarten through 3rd, because there's a massive demand. Parents really want their kid to be doing robotics, to be doing coding from kindergarten through 3rd grade, but we just don't have the class, and I just don't want to offer a bad class.
Yeah. You know, one other thought I had with regard to growth is your role in the business. I think all entrepreneurs, their role has to change. You know, you have the machine, and you're either in the machine or you're managing the machine. Mm-hmm. And you know, maybe one of the coaches today, but as you grow and you get to a point where you're adding more and more coaches, thinking about what is your role coach now, or is it managing and training coaches, or managing quality control, or, you know, and it may change from day to day. You may have to play several roles, but I think for you and your wife to kind of be aware of what shoes you're wearing each day or each part of the day, and making sure that and maybe you need to bring people in to cover different roles, and at some point you will. But I think being aware of, you know, that need to have, that there are different roles, whether there are people there or not, there are seats, and what seat are you sitting in?
Right. No, I think that's a great point. One of the hardest things I'm doing this summer I'm the substitute. So I'm not planning on teaching any of the courses, which is almost nerve-wracking for me, because up till this point I've taught 90% of the coaches, 90% of the classes personally. And so that is something that has been huge and will continue to be even a bigger part in the future. Yeah. He's bringing the microphone.
Just to follow on that, yeah. Do you love the math and robotics, or yes. Do you love selling the districts?
I love the math and robotics more than I love selling the districts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really a key, because you started off with, you know, I think the demand is there to go to 300 classes. Most people who have been down this road will tell you that if you had 300 classes, you wouldn't be a teacher anymore. Now you're running a business.
Right.
And that may or may not be attractive to you. You may or may not be suited to that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can bring people in to cover which of the roles she was just talking about. But that's really key, is if you can have that kind of growth,
right.
That's going to pull you, the natural pull is going to pull you out of the teaching, right. Which may or may not be acceptable to you. So you kind of have to factor that into your planning too. You may have somebody come in to run the business, and you continue to do what you love.
Right.
So it's just another thing to consider.
Yeah. And
it's probably easier to find the person to sell on the business than it is to find people to bring to classes with passion for that.
Any other questions out there?
I have one. When does this get uploaded? When can I?
I'll try and do this as quick as I can, Luke.
Perfect.
The last question we always ask is now, after your second time back, after this discussion, how can this community really help you moving forward?
Yeah, so I'd really like to touch base with a lot of you. Specifically, I want to talk to you about the advisory board and to you about how to scale and how to price that, because you said you've done that before. But I have a Twitter, Facebook, Gmail, and I think they're all available. And if not, feel free to make them available. And any feedback you might have. I'm sure some of you do software development, and I have a website. I'd like you to tell me everything you hate about it. Maybe you just don't like that it's bootstrapped, but I'm in love with it, so I'm not going to listen to that feedback specifically. But I'd really love any feedback.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Lee. I really appreciate it.
You want to take your, go ahead.
Yeah, I should.